Circa tonight, powered by our friends over at SharpStack, Matt Brown and Steven Andress. Just 3 football games remain in the NFL season. We got 2 more coming up here on Sunday to decide who will play in the Superb Owl, the big game, whatever you want to call it out there. Steven, I am very interested in both of these games for varying reasons. A little bit of a bummer on the AFC side of things. Of course, we will get into the nuts and bolts of all of this, break down not only the games themselves, all the different markets that you can bet into the games on Sunday. And let me tell you, it is, I think when it's all said and done, and I know it's a little unfortunate for the quarterback situation with Bo Nix over there with the Broncos, but you know, at the end of the day, we might have got the 4 best teams. I know we were saying all year that it was wide open and all that. It definitely was. But just because it was wide open doesn't mean that there weren't teams that had played at a different level over the course of the entirety of the season than everybody else. And, you know, at the end of the day, we might have gotten the 4 best.
I don't want the first thing I say to you on this week's show to be combative. So, hello, Matt. It's great to see you. It's great to be back again at Circa Sportsbook Kentucky here. We'll be rocking here for the championship games this Sunday, and then obviously the big one 3 Sundays from now. Now that I've gotten the pleasantries out of the way, there is no way in hell the Denver Broncos are one of the 4 best teams in the NFL. I'm sorry. Even if Bo Nix was playing, I am not on that wagon, sir. I'm sorry. They're just not.
Well, I'd like you to know that, I'd like you to insert AFC team here that replaces them then that would make you feel good outside of the Patriots, because I can't say that any team is definitively better than them over in the AFC.
Well, sir, I would agree with that. I mean, I think a lot of the look-ahead lines we saw of all the different hypothetical matchups combined with the actual lines of the real games that we had showed that you're right about that. I mean, none of these teams are really going to be a field goal or more favorite even on their home field in these matchups. But I surely would take Jacksonville or Buffalo over Denver. I know Buffalo just lost to Denver last week, but I mean, these are all coin flip games. I don't think Denver is that good. We'll get more into it with this matchup and having to figure out what to do with Jarrett Stidham, but I think that them winding up with the 1 seed in the AFC is the reason why they were here, and a big reason why they got the 1 seed is because they also had an easy schedule this season, just like the Patriots did.
Well, neither here nor there. We are going to have them take the field over there on Sunday, unfortunately, without Bo Nix. They will be hosting the New England Patriots as 4.5-point favorites, pretty much industry-wide, 42.5, the prevailing total, but Jarrett Stidham will be the quarterback. Bo Nix goes out. We find out immediately after the game, he has a fracture in his foot, was going to be out for the rest of the playoffs. And so in comes Jarrett Stidham, who has not thrown a competitive pass in the NFL in over 2 seasons. That said, he has been in the program. He has been around. He does know the system. And there's at least something to be said for all of that. New England survives one of the grosser games, I would say, in a hot minute with, I think I quit counting at 17 turnovers, Steven, something like that, and 21 potential turnovers in the game. And with that, they do move on, travel to Denver, and get to face a backup quarterback here. Seems like a pretty charmed season here for this New England team. I will say this. Did get up to 5.5 very briefly at 2 books, touched 6, and is now back down industry-wide at 4.5. So there has been some support for Denver over the last 24 hours.
Absolutely. And I don't care, Matt. I'm going to have a pretty strong take on this. Now, I want to preface it with, we're dealing with a big unknown here. We are talking about a quarterback who hasn't played in a long time, so a lot of this is going to be speculative. But to me, the way I'm going to look at this is if we're going to kind of make like a range of outcomes where one segment of that range is Jarrett Stidham is better than Bo Nix, another section of that range where Jarrett Stidham is the same as Bo Nix, and another section of that range where Jarrett Stidham is definitely worse than Bo Nix. I think the last one I just said, in my opinion, is far more likely and has a higher percentage than the other two combined. especially when you add the context that it's not just that he's a backup quarterback. It's that he's coming in cold. This is not Nick Foles on the Philadelphia Eagles, who had a few weeks to play some regular season games after Carson Wentz got hurt, to get his feet under him. Nick Foles was also an actual pretty good quarterback for long stretches in the NFL before he had that wild postseason as well. Jarrett Stidham's never done anything of substance in this league other than maybe like one game against the 49ers in 2022. So I just can't come into this game, glass half full, thinking that everything's going to be fine because Sean Payton's calling the plays and he was able to cover up Bo Nix. I don't really subscribe to that, Matt. So I'm going back to my belief. I talked about this as well a lot last week. It's not just Jarrett Stidham. It's that I also have a strong belief that the Denver Broncos defense is overrated. We talked last week about the long list of bad quarterbacks they got to face this year. If you look at actual decent quarterbacks that they faced in those other 8 games, including the playoff game last week, they've now allowed 27 points per game in those games against actually good quarterbacks. Like, not the weeks against Cam Ward or Jake Browning or Justin Fields or Geno Smith 2 times. Last 2 weeks of the season against Chris Oladipo and Trey Lance. Throw those games out. They don't mean anything for us trying to grade this Denver defense. When they've played good quarterbacks and good offenses, they've not been the same. And even after the bye week, they had a late bye week. Usually that helps a team reset, get better. Despite having games against Marcus Mariota on the schedule, Oladipo, Trey Lance, after the bye week, since week 12, this is a middle-of-the-road defense in terms of EPA per play allowed. So what is this team now, Matt? Like, if they don't have their starting quarterback, if the defense has been susceptible when they actually play good offenses, is this even an average NFL team that is going out to play in the AFC Championship game this week?
All right, so let's start with Stidham, right? So we can go back to 2020, and we have 3 games in which he had double-digit pass attempts. Then we can go to 2022, in which we have 3 games in which he had double-digit pass attempts. 2 of those were as a legitimate starter where he threw 34 and 36 passes. We can go to 2023 and into the 2024 season where he has 2 games of double-digit pass attempts. He threw 32 passes in one game and 34 passes in another game. That was the last game in which he did throw a significant amount of passes, didn't throw any last season, didn't throw any this season. So we do have 4 game sample size of 30 plus pass attempts for Jarrett Stidham. And so there is at least multiple years of playing in the league with at least a decent amount of, now, like I said, we can go all the way back to 2020, and yeah, it was like mop-up duty and this, that, and the other, but 13 attempts, 10 attempts, 11 attempts. We go to 2022, there was a game with 13 attempts before he had the 34 and 36 attempt game. And then in 2023, 2024, the 32 attempt and the 34 attempt game. And so I get what you're saying. It is definitely a guy that is certainly, I guess, if you want to use the term rusty or something, but we're not throwing some guy off the street in here. This isn't, DiNucci. This isn't Ben DiNucci, like taking the field or whatever. This isn't any of these dudes that we've seen be, as backup quarterbacks come in and it looks like they've never even seen a football field before. So, I mean, I'm with you. Listen, I mean, the first thing I did was put in a New England ticket. It opened at 4 at Caesars in Vegas. And first thing I did was throw a 4 in the account on New England. But I think that there is at least a little bit of a difference between Stidham and your typical backup quarterback in so much as he's been in the system for a long time. And he also has a chance to, he's had some chances to throw some real passes in NFL games.
It's interesting to me, which again, by the way, I mean, to steal the line from Outcast, he is cooler than being cool. He is ice cold. He has not played in forever. So that matters. But to your point, he has played at some point. But if you look at the situations he went into before, we're talking about having Josh McDaniels as a play caller with the Raiders. I know he's a disaster overall, but he's still a good play caller. Still got Josh McDaniels as a play caller with Devontae Adams in his prime, with Darren Waller before he upped and retired after breaking up and going through a divorce. I mean, Darren Waller in his prime was a really good tight end. Josh Jacobs at running back. So he had a lot around him to help him. And this week, it's Pat Bryant with a concussion, Cortland Sutton, who looked mid last week, RJ Harvey at running back, who's got no vision between the tackles. Evan Ingram's been a bust in Denver. He doesn't have much around him in this offense, in my opinion. So it really does have to be Sean Payton coming up with some masterful game plan to try and keep them in this game, in my opinion. So if you look at his numbers under the metrics, again, very small sample size, not a lot of games to go by here. But the last time we saw him for an extended period of time, if you compared his EPA plus CPOE composite score versus every other quarterback since 2021, he's basically falling in that like 120 to 130 range of quarterbacks out of 156 that were graded. So he's below average by a significant margin here. In that group, in that kind of tier that I've been putting it together since that time, I mean, in credit to Ben Baldwin for the stats, obviously, but compiling these together in one spreadsheet to kind of help me give me some more context here, you're seeing names like Will Levis, Josh Dobbs, Kenny Pickett, Bryce Young 2 years ago, Deshaun Watson in the terrible Cleveland years. So that's what we're looking at here to try and parse what on earth is Jarrett Stidham going to be on Sunday. And a lot of people are relying on the Broncos defense to do a lot of heavy lifting in this game, to keep them in this game, to keep them inside the number. And the only thing I will concede about this is that the Denver offensive line is quite good. So he will have time back there, I think, a lot of the time. But there just seems to be a lot of assumptions about the Denver defense being able to do a lot of heavy lifting in this game to keep Jarrett Stidham alive, when I'm not even sure the Broncos defense is actually good against an offense like Drake May has.
Yeah, I think that there's also a little bit here, though. Okay, let's play again. Let's play devil's advocate then. Okay. And let's say, what is the recipe for success on the Denver side of things? Because if you look at last week, and I'm not saying that exactly the same thing is going to happen, it won't, but I mean, if you do look at last week, you can make an argument that it was very fortunate the Patriots are here anyway. Drake May does a lot of things very well for a second-year quarterback in the NFL. Drake May does not feel pressure very well, and Drake May does not protect the ball very well. And there were a couple of times that they fell on fumbles that really and truly changed the course of the entire game. And if they don't fall on the fumbles, then who knows how the game ends up. And there is a world that exists where this defensive line does get pressure or gets to the guy who led the NFL in fumbles this season, and instead of falling on them, they fall on them. And Jarrett Stidham doesn't really even have to do all that much, Steven. I mean, short fields are short fields in the NFL. And so if we're looking at this and saying, all right, well, maybe Stidham can't put together 4 long scoring drives. Well, can he put together 2 long scoring drives and then you get 2 short fields? And now we're looking up and this game becomes like, who can kick the last field goal to win? I mean, I do think that these are all range of outcomes. Now, do I think it's likely? Not necessarily, but I think everyone is just kind of dismissing that this is a foregone conclusion. But I mean, Drake, it is very fortunate again that they were able to land on a couple of those fumbles last week, or we're not talking about them being in this game. And so, if that happens again and turnover variance goes opposite direction, then we might be talking about a Super Bowl that has Jarrett Stidham in it.
Oh, please God, no. But anyway, that was the first thing I thought of too when I was trying to play. Whenever I'm handicapping a game and deciding whether I want to bet on something, I play it from all sides, and I make that same argument to myself, Matt. And the rebuttal I gave to myself was that I think the Chargers pass rush and the Texans pass rush in particular, which can get it done with only rushing 4 and not having to blitz, was the big difference in that game. Because if you do look at, fair game here, in the games Drake May played this year against actual good pass rushes, he got sacked 5+ times in almost all of them. Pittsburgh game, Atlanta game, Cleveland game, the game last week. So pressure, being sacked has been an issue throughout the season. It's just a lot of the opposing offenses they played haven't been able to do their part, and the Patriots won a lot of games because of an easy schedule. The irony is the Patriots played the number 1 easiest schedule, as it turned out, by opponent win percentage this year. Denver was number 2. So they did what they had to do to get to this point. Now, I don't think the Denver pass rush, despite having all the sacks they had this year, does it the same way as a Houston defense does with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, or even the way the Chargers do it. To me, they blitz at a decent rate to try and generate this pressure. Denver had the number 6 blitz rate in the league this year to generate the number 2 highest pressure rate. And when blitzed is a lot different for Drake May than when he's facing pressure with just 4. Drake May against the blitz this season was first in QBR, first in completion percentage over expected, first in yards per attempt, first in EPA per dropback. So I'm not convinced that Denver just going back to the well and blitzing at a high rate this week is going to mean that Drake May is going to have a bad day.
I don't think that that's wrong by any stretch of the imagination. I do believe that if you look what Drake May is dealing with out there, as far as playmakers go, Steph Diggs at this point is not a playmaker. Steph Diggs is a chain mover, right? Yep. Kayshon Boutte is more the playmaker now for this team. And I do wonder actually how Denver is going to deploy, because, I think traditional thinking out there is kind of like, well, Surtain, if he's going to follow anyone, it'll be Steph Diggs. I actually don't think that. I think they'll be fine. I think they're fine giving Steph Diggs 8-yard receptions. I think you're fine with that if you're Denver. Yeah. I think you don't want Drake May hooking up with Kayshon Boutte for these massive plays that they've done all season long. I think you probably do a little bit of LSU crime out there and have Surtain on Boutte. That's just my opinion.
That would make sense to me too.
SEC on SEC crime.
I will at least say that the 2 times Boutte was targeted against Derek Stingley last week, he beat him. Yeah. And Boutte, if you look at the separation metrics for wide receivers this year, has maybe been one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. He's been outstanding in creating separation.
Yeah. So Stingley gave up 3 receptions all season long of 20+ yards, and he gave up 2 to Boutte in that one game. So it's just, it's Boutte's deep game has been ridiculous. And that's why I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. I keep hearing left and right, well, Surtain's going to take Diggs out of the game and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't think he's going to be on Diggs. Honestly, I don't think he's going to be on Diggs.
And I don't think if he is,
because Diggs is the household name, that's what's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're fine giving up 7 and 8 yard catches to Stephon Diggs. That's not going to hurt you. I don't think you want to give up the 30-yard pass to Kayshon Boutte. So, again, I could be wrong, but I don't think he's going to be on Diggs.
And whether it's Surtain on somebody or the trickle down of the other Riley Moss, the other cornerback in this defense who's having a bad year, I'm not necessarily scared regardless, because their defensive metrics have steadily declined as the season has gone on. And again, in the games against real offenses, they're giving up 27 points per game. So I'm not sure I really care who they're putting Surtain on in this game, Matt.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I will say that, again, I rushed to play New England in this, and I do believe that there is a real difficulty for sustained drives by a guy, again, that hasn't played in a couple of years and all of this. But I will say I am definitely worried about my bet with the ball security of New England, because
Yes.
you don't have, if you only have to put 2 real drives together and you have to put 2 little short field 30-yarders together, then that's a whole different ball game, and that's a whole different handicap, and that's something that we can't do now. But that is in the back of my head, because I noticed this all year long with Drake May about, and listen, he'll get better at, someone's going to work with him in the offseason. He's going to get into one of these quarterback gurus' hands, and like, they're going to teach him how to feel that backside pressure. Like, he just doesn't feel it, and he doesn't feel it right now. And that's why he's fumbled so much. And that's why these defenders, I went back and kind of looked at some of the other stuff. They know it too, because they all swipe at the ball against him. They see it on film, and they all are just swiping at the ball at Drake May. And so that is in the back of my head, that Denver gets in there, and even if it's not a lot of fumbles, and even if it's not a lot of sacks, and even if it's not a lot of pressure, the ones that they do get count. And if the ones that they do get count, then I think we could be sweating this one.
I have an interesting angle based on that I want to bounce off you here. I'm going to bring up SharpStack. And again, for those that are not SharpStack subscribers, you can use the code TNF Live and get 7 days free and 25% off a subscription here. So we're, on the audio side, just to let you know what's going on, I'm bringing up the odds screen here that instantly lets us see what the odds and the prices are for any market across every sports book in the state. Right now I'm in Kentucky, so we're looking at Kentucky sports books. So I want to look at the first quarter total for Patriots and Broncos, because I can actually see a situation, Matt, where the Patriots start out conservative on offense on their own, try to play things close to the vest, see how Denver's defending them, don't want to make any mistakes themselves because they don't know what they're dealing with Jarrett Stidham, and then see when Stidham comes out, is this guy actually live? Can he play a little bit? Or is this just going to be a slog and a grind for him the entire game? Is Denver trying to cover up Jarrett Stidham by trying to run the ball, despite the fact that the Patriots rush defense, when Milton Williams has been healthy, has been one of the most elite rush stop units in the league? So over under of 7.5 points in the first quarter, you can find minus 120 juice on that. We're anywhere between minus 120 and minus 130 on that price. Thoughts on that angle?
Yeah, I mean, I do believe for sure that it is going to be, this doesn't help definitively do anything here, but I do believe that Sean Payton is going to go one of two ways, which is he's going to protect Stidham and he's going to keep it close to the vest, or he's just going to come out absolutely guns a-blazing, just going absolutely nuts and saying, hey, listen, the way for us to win this game is to create variance and not to play conservative and play close to the vest. And honestly, I think that would be the way that I would go if I were him. Mm-hmm. But Sean Payton's has been confounding over his entire career. Like, I have not been able to figure Sean Payton out basically his entire time that he's been in the NFL coaching. So I don't know what he's going to do, but for me, if I'm throwing my backup quarterback in there after 2 years on the sideline, I don't want to limit possessions. Like, I want to make this game variant. I want him throwing deep, and maybe we get pass interference calls, or maybe we get, maybe he does hit a couple of these things, or maybe whatever. So and we'll talk about this a little bit later when we talk about some of these other markets, but I think that there's a market that I kind of like in this one that I don't know if a whole lot of people are going to want to follow me on. But yes, to answer your question, it's one of two. I don't think it's going to be in the middle. I don't think we see a balanced game plan out of the Broncos to start this game. It is either going to be super conservative, or I think it's going to be absolutely guns a-blazing.
I mean, if Bo Nix had a low ADOT, what on earth is Jarrett Stidham's ADOT going to be in this game? I mean, how many wide receiver screens is he going to throw in this game with Sean Payton's game plan here? My goodness. All right.
By the way, no weather, just for everybody, no weather in that. It's going to be cold, but like no wind, no precipitation. It's going to be in the 20s. Like, don't get me wrong, that's cold, but I mean, it's New England. So it's the Patriots coming to, it's a cold weather team.
No, it's in Denver. So it's in Denver.
Yeah.
I think you just misspoke. You said the game's in New England, but the game's in Denver.
I meant.
But that is the forecast.
It's a cold weather team going to a cold weather place. It doesn't matter. So it's New England heading to Denver. Not going to be that big of a deal. So don't worry about that. Also, no weather in the second game either. That's certainly something that we would we would bring up, but nothing that we have any concern with here. Steve, we'll circle back to this one for our friends here that are joining us, and we'll get some final thoughts here on this one. Again, as Steven said, TNF Live, if you haven't done so, SharpStack, if you want to go visit the sportsbook there in Kentucky on Sunday, trust me, it is going to be hopping in there. Greatest place to watch sports in that area. So if you're listening to us on 104.1, 9:30 a.m., be sure and head over there and take a look at what they've got going on over at Circa. The NFC Championship game is the Rams at Seattle. This is 2.5 in favor of Seattle. This is 46.5 to 47 out there in the market from a total perspective. So, Stephen, I was under the impression that we were going to get a 3 in this game in favor of Seattle. Then yesterday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, I don't know if there was a release or a group or a whatever that was just tired of waiting or whatever it was, but all the 2.5s were at -120 except for at Caesars, which was at -117. And then my screen flashed all at the same time, and all the 120s got wiped out. They went to 115. They went to 110. We're sitting right now 106 at FanDuel, 112 at Caesars, but we're 110 at Circa, we're 110 at Fanatics, 110 at DraftKings. So somebody came and bought up all of the cheap 2.5s. So all of the even money 2.5s out there got taken up last night. And I don't know what it was. Like I said, I don't know if it was a release. I don't know if it was a syndicate. I don't know what it was, but I guess people were tired of waiting and seeing if this thing was going to get to 3. So now I'm under the impression, I don't know if we're going to get to 3 in this. I think 2.5 just might be the number that we're at here in this one. And as far as the total, I have seen a little action in this one, kind of just ticking a little bit back and forth between 46.5 and 47. But that's pretty much where we're at there. And that's a little bit less significant than obviously the 2.5 or 3.
For sure. But 47 is a kind of a key number in total, so that makes that interesting as well. If you're interested in the over, definitely try and take the 46.5, which is where we're at right now. I think it's a lot of this is going to be the same thing that we talked about in the first 2 meetings between these two teams, especially that Thursday night football game. And that injuries aside, if both teams are at full strength, it's really hard to make either of these teams a 3-point favorite over the other. We both kind of agreed on that for the crazy Thursday night game that went to overtime, that if the Rams touched 3, we're taking some Rams. And I think they did right before kickoff. That total got blasted down on some weather concerns and it flew over. I mean, game went into the 30s into overtime. So I tend to want to bet the over again here. Even in the first meeting, in a dome in LA, we're basically around this 47 number anyway. And I know that game was a slog and Sam Darnold threw 4 picks. But if you look under the hood a little bit, the Seahawks did have success moving the ball in that game. It was just bad turnovers by Sam Darnold. So in that week 11 game, 4 picks, but a 54% success rate for Sam Darnold against this Rams defense. For context, Drake May and Matthew Stafford led the NFL around 54% drop back success rate. Seahawks also had a series conversion for a first down on 75% of their series in that game. Now we fast forward to week 16, the just absolute instant classic in Seattle. Sam Darnold again, 48% success rate. That would be top 10 in the NFL this year. Matthew Stafford, 47% success rate. Insane efficiency, 457 yards, 3 touchdowns, 9.3 yards per attempt on 49 passes, despite having a positive game script for most of that game where they were up big at the start of the fourth quarter. So they leaned into not even trying to run on this elite Seahawks defense. They went pass heavy, and I think you might have a pass funnel defense on the other side as well. The Rams run stops pretty good too. 6th in the league this year in rush D success rate, with a Seattle offense that has had some flashy runs at times for sure. We've seen that from Kenneth Walker the past couple of weeks, but for the most part on the season, 23rd by rushing offense success rate this year for Seattle. So when I hear that, and we have two sharp coaches that have already shown us that they're willing to lean into the pass when necessary, I think 46.5 might be an over bet here, Matt. I mean, I don't know how I can have a strong opinion at the 2.5 right now, unless you just want to bet opinion on who we think is better. But I do think 46.5 based on two potential pass funnel defenses is interesting. Now, I'll kick it to you here. The big question is, do we trust Sam Darnold? Because they're saying all the right things.
The question to me is, and the reason I can't get to an over here is I think we might be dealing with two injured quarterbacks. And like that to me is something I don't want to bet on offensive success for. It seems to me last week, that's finger on Stafford's finger. That finger on Stafford's hand is obviously not right. He missed passes that Matthew Stafford just doesn't miss. The ball flew on him multiple different times in that game. Sam Darnold rarely threw the ball deep down the field with that oblique injury that he's dealing with as well. Like if all things were even here, Steven, and I knew everybody was good to go, I could come in and give you kind of a full-throated endorsement of what you were talking about from an over standpoint. But yeah, I didn't see sharp Matthew Stafford last week. I didn't see the same Sam Darnold offense that we saw for a massive part of the season. And also, I didn't see Sean McVay. And listen, everybody I'm sure has bad days. That was horrific from Sean McVay last week. That was one of the worst performances I've seen from him in the NFL ever. This guy is highly regarded as one of the sharper minds in the NFL. He did not have his fastball last week at all. And I look at that and I do wonder, I don't know if he was trying to out-cute himself in all of that, but I mean, you have a team in the Bears that is one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, and we're deep into the fourth quarter and there were 10 running back carries for the Rams in that game. Like, I don't know what was going on over there, and if he's like, well, they think we're going to run, so we're not going to run and whatever, but it's like, yeah, man, well, that's how you have tons of success against this Bears defense. Like, they can't defend the run at all. They're literally horrific against it. And so I don't know. It was bad decision after bad decision from McVay last week, which doesn't give me a ton of confidence either. The other thing for me is I do think that, and the reason I actually, of the four bets this week, I think the total in this game is the one that I would be least confident in betting and run furthest away from, because I do believe that there is a range of outcomes in this game. Like, I do believe that there is everything from both teams into the 30s to both teams into the teens in this game. Like, I think that is certainly in the range of outcomes, which has kind of kept me like way far away from that total. But it seems to me like you believe that these offenses have enough to get at these opposing defenses.
In the passing game, I do. I think both would struggle in the run game. And if they're just going to lean into the pass, I think they can move the ball. Now, that might be an interesting take for some, considering how good the Seattle defense is. But as bad as the game plan was for Sean McVay last week, and I completely agree with that, it was weird that the way they kind of deployed their offense last week. I mean, Jordan Whittington played 60% of snaps last week. Mumfield played 46% of snaps. All season long, the kind of X factor cheat code that the Rams have deployed that nobody's been able to solve were not 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. It was 3 tight end sets. It was 13 personnel. And for whatever reason, they got away from that last week. And I didn't really understand it for the entire time I was watching the game. Like, why in the playoffs are we now all of a sudden playing Jordan Whittington the majority of the snaps? So that's not what happened, though, in the Thursday night game against Seattle. Seattle runs base defense. They can stop the run with 4. Now, it looks like base defense, but they can actually get an extra DB out there, right, Matt? Haven't we talked about this in recent weeks? They can get an extra DB out there, but they can still stop the run in nickel. That's accurate, correct?
Yeah, they play majority nickel and dime, yeah.
Right. So, but they can. The reason I say it feels like base is because they can still somehow stop the run out of that, which is very rare. But the Rams countered that in the Thursday night game where they just moved the ball at will with mostly 13 personnel. Now, in that Week 16 game, Colby Parkinson played 86% of the snaps, the Rams' number one tight end. Their rookie, Terrence Ferguson, 76% of tight end snaps. Davis Allen, their number 3 tight end, played 65% of snaps in that Thursday night game. And Stafford threw it 43 times before we even got to overtime in that game, despite them trotting out 3 tight end sets for the majority of the game. So that's how they countered what Seattle was doing defensively with using bigger bodies in the pass game, and it worked flawlessly. I mean, they 457 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 9.3 yards per attempt for Matthew Stafford in that game. So, Matt, I don't know what I watched last week, but I'm willing to bet that we're going to go back to 13 personnel this week, and Mike McDonald's going to have to come up with some kind of counter for that.
Yeah, it is to me this one is the chess match, right? Like, so this one is where do we find even the slightest edge here? Because again, on paper, if we just go by what we've seen all year long, right? 2 great quarterbacks, 2 good offensive lines, 2 the 2 best wide receivers in the league, defenses that get a ton of pressure, like all that. I mean, like every single thing that, like, you can't really decipher these 2 teams apart. Like, if we gave blind resumes, you'd probably have a difficult time deciding which team was which, because it's just like they're so very similar. And so it might come down, like you're saying, I mean, like, it really and truly might come down to what these 2 guys on the sidelines can try and mastermind. And honestly, not even pregame, but in-game. This might be the biggest in-game changing, adapting, dealing with whatever is being thrown at them type of game that we've seen in the NFL this season, because they're very familiar with each other. And so I'm sure that these teams understand a little bit of each other's tendencies. And so what can the Rams do to try and throw a curveball at the Seahawks and vice versa and all of that? Like, this game to me is, I know everyone's going to say this is the real Super Bowl, and I'm not going to say that because we still have an institution of the AFC versus the NFC, but this is the game I think I'm most excited for of the entire NFL season.
I 100% agree. We've said it for months now that we think these are the 2 best teams in the NFL, and I didn't think the bracket was going to shake out this way to give us this matchup at the NFC title game. Major thank you to my 49ers and pulling the upset in the wild card round to make this possible. So I can't wait. This is the Super Bowl to me. This is who's going to win the Super Bowl is coming out of this game. Even if it's the Patriots on the other side, I can't see it. So, I want to talk about some props here real quick.
No, absolutely. Like, let's hit some of the general ones, and then we'll come back to like specific ones, because guys, with the way that these go, and like, you can do this every single week, but obviously this week is a little bit different considering there's only 2 games. So there is at least a little bit more of these deals. So what they will allow you to do, and you go in and it's like, there's everything from, highest scoring team, lowest scoring team, player with the most passing yards, player with the most receiving yards, rushing yards, et cetera, like stuff like that. Right. And so there are all of those that you can bet on this week, which I think are super incredibly interesting, and so, Stephen, for me, if you look and kind of like, who's going to lead in passing yards. Well, obviously Stafford is your favorite because he is projected to have the most passing yards this week. Of course, Darnold is second. And then, as you would imagine, Drake May is third, and then Stidham being last. I was going to float to you Jared Stidham to lead this week in passing yards, because this team does get down. They can't run the ball on the Patriots, who By the way, you and I talked about this at the beginning of the season. We're elite against the run, lost Milton Williams for a hot minute, kind of slacked off a little bit. He gets back in the lineup. They're elite against the run again. So they can't run the ball, and they're basically having to just drop back, 35 times in this game, maybe even more. And even if they lose the game, it's just the volume that kind of gets us there, because I can see a world, and I understand why Stafford is favored, and I understand why Darnold, whatever. Like I said, I do see a world where that game plays into the teens, where it is such a strategic chess match, and these guys just know each other so well that a lot of stuff just isn't working in the third matchup between these teams. And so I wonder if the sneaky bet isn't taking the long shot in this, even though it is Jarrett Stidham, who hadn't thrown a pass in a couple of years.
I like the idea of picking one of the two in the AFC game, because I do think you have a couple of pass funnel defenses there as well. And again, the familiar foe angle in the NFC side for sure. And I do agree with you that it's very much in the range of outcomes that we could have a game state where 1st to 20 in the NFC wins, just because they game plan so well against the other offense. So I think that's far more likely than this one. And,
Stafford's 140, Darnold's 240, May is 280, and Stidham is 550. So, you're getting exponentially higher on Stidham in what will almost certainly be a negative game state. I guess we can't say for sure, but it seems like everyone does believe this Patriots team is going to win this game. And so it seems as if there will be far less neutral game script and certainly more negative game script for Jarrett Stidham than there is for Stafford or Darnold or Drake May. And so I just wonder if we don't look up and Stidham had to throw the ball 38 times in this game, or 40 times in this game, because they're trailing from jump. And even though it doesn't necessarily equal a win or a ton of points, but he's thrown for 290, and 290 is enough to be the top passer on the week.
It's a fun angle. I'm curious about another market here as well when it comes to the receiving yards. Obviously, these two are related, right? So if you like Stidham to be maybe a long shot most passing yards, then I would assume that you think he might be just locked on to somebody in this offense in this game. And if not, then, for me on the Patriots side, if we think Surtain might make it harder for these wide receivers and we're worried about the pass rush, well, then maybe we need to be looking at a long shot price for Hunter Henry at tight end, or one of these running backs for New England on dump offs. So that's kind of where my head goes too, but that's also a tough market where you got Puka and JSN at the top of the board.
Right. Plus 180 on Puka, plus 190 on JSN. Then we go all the way to 11-1, which is Cortland Sutton, Steph Diggs, and Devontae Adams, all at 11-1. Hunter Henry is 20-1. Here's the deal with Booty. Again, I might be wrong, and maybe they do deploy Surtain on Steph Diggs. Booty at 25-1. I think is fairly interesting because of the playmaking ability that he does have and the ability to catch these bombs. 25-1 in an offense that likes to throw the deep ball. Drake May likes to throw the deep ball and actually was really good at it this year as well. And so, Puka and Jason are the favorites for a reason, for sure, but at plus 180 to 25-1 out to Booty, who possesses kind of the same type of reason you would like Puka and JSN, which is they do catch balls way down the field and don't necessarily have to rely on volume. I don't know. I thought that was at least fairly interesting. I think that's a fat number on a dude that, depending on how the defense is deployed, could end up being the number one target for Drake May in this game.
I completely agree with you, and I'm looking down right now because I just pulled out my phone and I'm going to bet it, because I think that's really a good number on Kayshon Boutte, because I think there's multiple ways you can get there, even with fewer targets on the deep stuff like you talked about, and maybe just multiple extra targets because he's the only one that can separate against a couple of pretty good coverage guys for Denver. So that's
I think that one is super interesting. On the rushing side of things, it's a little less exciting because Kenneth Walker is your favorite at minus 130. And the reason for that is he's the only one that has the backfield to himself. We should have mentioned in that game for Seattle. that it's going to be the Kenneth Walker show. And so Kyron Williams is the next in line, but it's because he's also siphoning off carries to Blake Corum. Ramondre Stevenson is after that, but obviously he's siphoning off carries to Travion Henderson. RJ Harvey might have two other guys in the backfield for all we know, depending on what they decide to do with Dobbins between now and the time this game kicks off. And so it's a little less sexy, I guess, with Kenneth Walker at minus 130, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's probably priced correctly because he's the only one that's going to get all the work.
Can Stidham run, or is he a statue back there? Because 175 to 1 for a guy who's now on an offense where Bo Nix ran like crazy. I mean, they were designing read options for Bo Nix in that offense.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to give me 175 to 1 when Drake May is 22 to 1, at least piqued my interest here a little bit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's probably worth some pizza money just in case, right? Because there is, again, while Kenneth Walker, I think, is probably priced correctly because, again, he is the only dude in the backfield for them. That doesn't just guarantee success, though. Just because he's the only guy getting carries. Christian McCaffrey's the only guy getting carries for the 49ers, but you look up and he's got 15 carries for 40 yards. You know what I mean? Like just because you're the only dude doesn't mean it's going to be successful.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's these are pass funnel. Rams are not the Seahawks run stop, but they're a good run stop. And Seattle does and has had recently some offensive line issues. Charles Cross is still banged up. We'll see how effective he is. If he can't go, his backup is also banged up. So, again, small sample, man. But when he started for Josh McDaniels, he had 2 starts and he had 7 rushes in both of those starts, one of them for 50 yards rushing. So,
yeah,
we don't have many games on the slate here. There's 2 games. And a 60-yard rushing day might be enough. A 50-yard rushing day,
it really might
be enough.
Yeah, it might. There's only 2 games. I mean, it definitely could. So there we go. Like, again, it's just a fun thing to have. It's like it gives you an extra sweat in these games. I have a Stidham ticket on the passing yards for the reasons that I just said. I think we made a pretty strong case for Kayshon Boutte.
Yep.
Given the price attached to his name, I think that the price is too long. Now, is he likely to out-receive Puka Nacua and JSN? Of course not, because they're the 2 best receivers in the NFL. But in a 1-game sample, Steven, yes, he can absolutely out-receive both of those guys.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Look around too. There's even some, deeper down the rabbit hole markets here, like most receiving yards by a tight end is available in some spots. You could really get wild here. You could do a trifecta bet on basically a parlay between most passing yards, most receiving yards, most rushing yards. There's all kinds of stuff available this weekend. Books are going to give you more offerings. With only 2 games left on the slate, they're going to give you a lot of stuff that you normally can't get. I do want to talk about anytime touchdown market, though, Matt. In particular for the Los Angeles Rams. And I'll pull up SharpStack here so we can see all the prices across the books. And I'm going to go back to what I said before about in the last matchup, the second time that McVay faced McDonald this year, he ran majority 3 tight end sets. Now, last week, Terrence Ferguson came back from an injury, and he took back his number 2 tight end role. He played more snaps than Tyler Higbee. So I'm under the assumption that this week the pecking order is Colby Parkinson's tight end 1, Terrence Ferguson is tight end 2, Tyler Higbee's tight end 3, and then Davis Allen, who also has 3 touchdowns this year, is tight end 4. I want to bet all of them, Matt. I just want to spread 2 units on all 4 of these tight ends, and maybe I get 2 of them to score touchdowns in this game. That's kind of how I feel about this. Colby Parkinson's plus 375. If we scroll down, Tyler Higbee and Terrence Ferguson are about 6 to 1 odds in this game. And even though he scored in 3 different games this year, Davis Allen is 20 to 1 to score a touchdown in this game. So I wouldn't split the 2 units evenly, but I would make it so I kind of get the same payout no matter who wins. And then if I get 2 of them, I'm feeling pretty good. So I want to make a profit no matter what if I can. So I haven't done the math yet, but spread it out so it makes sense for you no matter who scores the touchdown. That means you're going to put more on Colby Parkinson than you will on the other two. But I think all four of these guys are live to score a touchdown, to be quite honest with you.
No, I mean, I think that is and like you said, you only need one of them to hit.
If they're going to run this much 13 personnel, I don't think those can be the prices and Devontae Adams be like plus 110 or plus 120.
Right.
I know he led the league in touchdowns, but in this particular matchup, if they're running that much 13 personnel, there's going to be guys on the field around the goal line and some snaps where Devontae Adams is not even on the field. They'll have Puka out there as the one wide receiver in the 13 personnel. So I thought that was an interesting look. And then just one more on this tight end angle. With them kind of spreading around the targets and whatnot. Last week, it was 7 targets for Parkinson, 5 for Terrence Ferguson. Parkinson's basically lined where I think he's supposed to be. But the one bet I made in terms of like reception prop or receiving yards prop was in the receptions market. And it's Terrence Ferguson coming right back into his role last week off the injury in a matchup where I expect them to deploy 3 tight ends, and you're getting as high as plus 160 on Terrence Ferguson, over 1.5 receptions in this game. That was one of the first props I bet this week. Ferguson over 1.5 receptions at a really good plus price.
The other one that I want to look at here, where I think it's at least somewhat interesting, is Puka Nacua, but from a rushing standpoint.
Okay.
They've been pretty okay with giving him these little end arounds,
Yep.
And you can get 10 rushing yards from Puka Nacua at plus 174 at FanDuel if you want to play like an alt number, right? And if they only give him 1, you're probably not getting there. But like we've seen him get 2 carries in multiple games this year. And so I think at the number at plus 174, and like us saying that they might have to pull every trick they have in the bag out in order to have success in these games against each other, that trying to get the ball into your best player's hands as much as humanly possible might be something that McVay tries to do. And again, we're getting plus 174 on it anyway.
I think that's a great angle. It's interesting. The market actually had the same thought on a wide receiver rushing yards prop this week, but just somebody on the other team. It was actually Rashid Shaheed for the Seattle Seahawks. He opened at like 1.5 for his rushing yards total, and that's been bet up to about 4.5. I assume the angle is, Zach Charbonnet is not available, so they want to get the ball into the hands of their playmakers more so than, the number 3 running back on the roster. If you look at Shaheed's game logs, I mean, there's been a lot of games this year where he's had at least 1 rushing attempt. So you're just hoping that he gets 5 yards on that rushing attempt if you're going to bet the bad number now. But yeah, I mean, I think you get to games like this, Matt, at this point in the season, and you are far more likely to have plays like that, high leverage moments where the coaches are just fully focused on getting their best players as many touches as possible, where it makes the most sense to do so.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a plus 174. Is it likely to hit? I mean, look, no, that's why it's plus 174. He's probably going to get 1 carry in this game for sure. If we get 2 carries, I feel good about the bet. It's just we need 2. We need more than 1, and so I will pay the plus 1. I will get 1 plus 174 on the thought that, like you just said, that we're going to be in a game that might be hard to come by. Who knows? It might be hard to move the ball, and anytime you can get it in Puka's hands, whether it's through the air or on the ground, is probably going to be a smart decision.
I got one more for you.
Shoot it.
While we're on odd, weird rushing yard props, Seahawks tight end AJ Barner over half a rushing yard. He is the tush pusher.
He's the tush push guy.
And you can get minus 105 on AJ Barner to have at least 1 rushing yard in this game. He's had an attempt in half the games this year for Seattle. which I think tells you that this price should actually be a little shorter than it is, because there's been a lot of games where they played bad opponents and didn't need him for that situation. He's run 3 tush pushes in 2 games against the Rams. If they're in 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, why would they not go to AJ Barner for the tush push, especially with Darnold's oblique?
No, I as long as they get in that situation, they're going to do it, and they're going to use.
That's the cap, right? That's the cap. You just need him to get into that situation, that down and distance.
Which in a game that we think could be super close and super hotly contested, you might have to go for it on a 4th down. Even if it's a 4th and kind of a long yard situation, this is stuff that they might have to just do because you find yourself having to not give the ball back to the Rams for some reason. So yeah, I think that's perfectly in line. Do we have any kicking handicaps in this thing? Because both are set at 49.5 for the longest field goal of the game. So basically a 50-yarder. Do we see a 50-yarder in either one of these games happening?
In the AFC, I would say far more likely, because you got a couple of nits as head coaches who are more than willing to kick 50-yard field goals in Sean Payton and Mike Vrabel. So you can pretty much book, you're going to at least get one attempt from that range in that game instead of going for the 4th down. The other side, I don't know, maybe. Tougher call, I think, on the NFC side, especially if we get into a bit of a shootout. But we'll see. It's like you said, it's hard to predict the game state of that one more so than the AFC game. I think.
I mean that. I kind of like the over in the AFC one, even though I know it's going to be cold, but there's no wind, there's no whatever. And 50, back in the day, we'd be like, well, it's going to be in the 20s, a 50-yarder, they might not do it. These guys make 70-yarders now. So it's like a 50-yarder and cold is fine. And if the Patriots do get up in this game, Steven, then going for it on 4th down is going to be taken out of the picture altogether. Trying to get cute is going to be taken out of the picture altogether. Like you said, a more conservative coach as it is anyway. I can easily see if they're up 13 in this game, or they're up 10 in this game, or they're up 14 in this game, like settling for a long field goal as opposed to trying to go for a 4th and 3 or something like that.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. The other
I might look at
angle,
the under on the other game though. I'm with you. I think the NFC game is more of an under type situation.
Yeah, the other angle that I like to look at, and my good friend Evan Scrimshaw tipped me off of this a couple of years ago. Compare the prices for team total touchdowns scored and kicker extra points scored. A lot of times you'll get plus money on the kicker extra points versus a very deep lot of juice on the team side. They should be closer in price than they are, and you're getting value on the kicker to go over extra points.
Yeah, it is, again, super, super deep out there, guys. So be sure, go in, compare, contrast. SharpStack gets you all of the information. TNF Live is the code for 7 days free, 25% off over there whenever you do decide to subscribe. Again, Patriots, 4.5-point favorites on the road over the Broncos, 42.5 the total there in that one. The Rams go into Seattle as 2.5-point underdogs, 46.5 the prevailing total. You can find a 47 out there as well. Steven, I'm on the Patriots. I bet it as soon as the line hit. I do have a little bit better than what is currently available. It doesn't really matter. It's pretty much the same handicap between 4 and 4.5. I don't know that Denver's going to put together a lot of sustained scoring drives. I am worried about the turnovers, but there's nothing I can really do about that. I don't have anything in the Rams in Seattle yet. I really wish I did. Like I said, a few of those little props that we just mentioned, but I'm happy to sit back and watch that one.
Agreed. Might be a live betting opportunity if we get maybe a early Seahawks field goal, maybe a 3 pops up in the live market. Yeah. But it's Patriots for me. If you haven't bet it yet, it's worth waiting to see if more Broncos money comes in and you can just get the 4 instead of betting the 4.5 now. I like AJ Barner over half a rushing yard in the Seattle game, and I'm betting every Rams tight end to score a touchdown in this one.
Guys, next time we talk to you, we will know the two teams playing in the Super Bowl. Cannot wait for this weekend. For Steven, I am Matt. Good luck on all your bets.